Okay, so I decided to finally check out Amsterdam, the latest film from David O. Russell. So he writes, he directs, he also produces the film along with Arnon Milchan, Anthony Katagas, Matthew Budman, and Christian Bale. It's executive produced by Sam Hansen, Drake, Yariv Mitchum, Adele Nuhr, and Michael Schaffer. Co-produced by Doug Torres. Associate produced by Elena Adis, Serena Cohen. Um, Music was handled by Daniel Pemberton. Emmanuel Lubezki handles the cinematography. Jay Cassidy edits the film. Lindsey Graham and Mary Venue took care of the casting. Production design is Judy Beaker. Art direction is Danielle Osborne and Alexander Wee. Set decoration is Patricia Kukia and Erin Fitt. Costume design is J.R. Hallbaker and Albert Wolski. So our cast, well, we have got Christian Bale as Bert Bernardinson. His wife, Beatrix Vanden Heuvel, is played by Andrea Riseborough. Riseborough? Yeah, Riseborough. Right. Oh, yes, we probably go with her parents are Augustus van der Heuvel is played by Casey Biggs, and his wife Olivia van der Heuvel is played by Day Young. We also have got Bert's best friend, Harold Woodman, played by John David Washington. And then there's Valerie Vox, his love and also a friend of Bert's, who is played by Margaret Robbie. Now, Valerie, her brother, who is Tom Vox, is played by Rami Malik, and his wife, Libby Vox, is played by Anna Taylor Joy. So, now Bert and Harold were in the war, and their commander was General Bill Meekins, who is played by Ed Begley Jr., who kind of is the impetus for the story, right? His daughter, Liz Meekins, was played by Taylor Swift. We have got Milton King, who served with Bert and Harold. He's played by Chris Rock. Who else should we have? Oh, yes, Shirley Pratt, played by Bonnie Hellman, and Morty Baum, played by Max Perlich, work with Bert in his doctor's surgery. We have got Zoe Salandana, who plays Irma St. Clair. She is a mortician. There is Paul Canterbury, played by Mike Myers, and Henry Norcross, played by Michael Shannon. right? The hitman Taron Milfax, played by Timothy Oliphant. There's Detective Lem Getwiller, played by Matthias Schoenazutz, and his colleague, Detective Hilt, played by Alessandro Nivola. I kind of feel that's probably General Gil Dillenbeck, right, who is played by Robert De Niro, and is kind of the one kind of true character in the film, right? Because he's based on General Smedley Butler, who is a real character. Everyone else is pretty fictional, if I remember correctly. Eva Ott is played by Colleen Camp. That would be. Dum, dum, dum. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that is essentially our main lot of characters. So, the gist of this story is. And it's the best kind of description for this. I think it would be okay, so it is based on true events. So we get a thing at the very start, and it's going, loosely based. Some of this actually happened, right? And the story is based on the business plot, right? A 1933 political conspiracy to overthrow President Roosevelt. So that was the kind of real gist of the film, and something that actually did happen, right? So we follow three friends, a doctor, a nurse, and a lawyer, who reunite and seek to uncover the act following the mysterious murder of a retired US general. That's it, right? So yeah, the doctor and the lawyer would be Washington and Bale's characters, and the general is Meekins, right? The nurse being Robbie. Okay, so yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to make of this film. Right? It opens up and it feels, I don't know, it just wasn't connecting at first, right? All felt rather I think loose might be the word, right? Not loose in a, yeah, that feels comfortable way. Just, I don't know, just didn't really, I didn't feel it flowed. And it's all, talking about, this stuff that had happened. And then, right, we get to a bit where we go, oh, but before all of this happened, and then we kind of get the war stuff, like how they actually met and all of that. And that brought it more to life to me. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing, you're like, okay, right, these relationships make sense. I see why you wanted to, find a murderer Bill and just all of this kind of stuff. You're like, okay, oh, and that's how you met Robbie's character, right? Okay, you know what I mean? I can get into this now, and I think a lot of the relationships and characterizations started to come alive at that point as well. Right? Because at the beginning, it's, I don't know if there's this comedic kind of thread running through the film, right? And some of that you kind of feel just doesn't quite work, right? But when we see these flashbacks, it just brought people to life a bit more. It added more dimension to the story and the characters, right? You started to believe in these relationships, you know. It was, you know, I enjoyed this part, right? It really, yeah, you believed in this stuff, right? It started to make sense, I would say. Now, it's not to say the performances were bad. No, the performances were decent. They were good. There's a lot of unevenness, no, right? Which I feel becomes a little problematic in places. You know what I mean? And we have this stuff that goes down with some characters, right? Like with the shooting and then the police, and you thinking there's stuff, right, that you'd be like, okay, I can see that happening. But then there's other stuff like the watered down racism. Just, it's always weird when you watch these kind of period pieces and you know, these characters are meant to be racist and they'd just be like, oh, I don't like you because of your color. And it's just like, that's, yeah, because that's what they would have said. You know what I mean? It's none of that, right? So there's this weirdness that's kind of running through. Now, obviously, listen, there's words, right? That are, you know, not necessarily as savory as others, right? But I think when you're dealing with history, by excluding certain things, right? Because you have this younger generation watching shit and not doing any sort of research or understanding the history of things. So, like, then you get people going, oh, yeah, it wasn't as bad. Oh, you know, it wasn't a lot of racism back then. Oh, okay. And it's just like, no, what are you talking about? Right? So there's times when you just think, man, just look, if you want to be this thing, be it. Let's not water shit down. You feel me? Um, but yeah, there was some interesting stuff here, right? Interesting stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of, like, when the detectives are there, you just think, hmm, right? There's some things you think, all right, I can get friendships and looseness of story, but it's just, I don't believe their actions. I don't believe this shit. Right? That it just didn't make any sense. The fact that um oh my god, I'm just like, I've just watched it and my memory is just trash. Straight trash. Valerie doesn't look for Harold. Right? You just think, I don't know. It just seemed weird. Right? There's things that you're watching, and you're just like, I don't know if I buy that. Right? The whole stuff with um, Bert, Beatrix, and Irma just felt a bit weird. Right? Because the Beatrix stuff, I think more kind of comes out towards the end, but it's still just a situation that isn't really fleshed out enough for it to then have any true relevance, right? It's just this thing that felt tacked in, but we're not given much on. And it's just like, what was really the point, right? There's other ways you could say they're estranged. So just do that, you know? And then the Irma stuff, right? I understand it was a different time, right? And the amount of people you meet, you know, like grandparents and just all of that shit, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I met my wife, you know, the, on this date, and we were married a week later," and just all of that kind of. So you understand things were different, right? People just coming out of a war, so it probably seized the day. and all of that kind of jazz. But that whole situation just felt real forced and just doesn't make any sort of sense. Doesn't make any sort of sense, you know? And it's also a bit of like, why? You know what I mean? Listen, have conversation. Like, why do we always have to skip that part, right? Of people actually getting to know each other, right? It's very weird, very weird. So, yeah, there's stuff in Amsterdam that I liked. Look, I think the tone works very well. You know, all the filters and all of that. I thought some really good acting in places. Um, I thought the wardrobes worked and all of that. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of stuff that works. The story does get real convoluted. Just it just gets just real, just odd. Odd. Like there's this murder, and then it's just like, oh, but we need to find this out and we need to do this. And it's just like, why would you do that? Right? It doesn't make any sense for the murder, but you're doing this, that, and just this random stuff. Like when there's the second death, you're just like, wait, what are you doing? Straight away, you would grab the guy, right? Like there's certain things that you would try and do, and they just don't do. And then it's just like, oh, ooh, oh, I don't know what's happening. He's just, yeah, like I don't know. Mm, it's a very frustrating story, but with this, you know, a real event that actually took place underpinning it, which is interesting. So yeah, it's I don't know. It doesn't fully work. You know, it's definitely not up to what O. Russell has done in the past, right? When you think of his other films, I mean, he's done, better stuff, right? I would say, yeah, it's I don't know, very uneven. But I mean, yeah, some of his stuff has been uneven. But when you look at the fighter was great, right? I enjoyed Huckabee. Silver Lining Playbook was, oh, I love that one. Some of the other stuff, bit uneven, which, yeah, I guess, it does kind of fit, in a way. But yes, it is now streaming on Disney Plus. So if you are intrigued, and check out Amsterdam, you know what I mean? You may enjoy it more than I did. So yeah, there you go.